Hello, this is Neil from iPaintGirls.com, and someone had put a comment on the channel saying, hey, what about doing shadows for people, drop shadows for people? I thought, hey, that's a great idea for a tutorial, so we're going to go ahead and do that. The first thing, though, is I am Neil from iPaintGirls.com and MasterEdit.net. Both links are in the description. Tons of free tutorials at both sites. MasterEdit is for writing tutorials. iPaintGirls is for drawing tutorials and painting tutorials and so forth, Photoshop tutorials and whatnot. Right, so first thing then is we need a basic box. I'm going to go ahead and put a basic box on the scene. Because before I move on to how to do drop shadows for people, I think it's important to understand the basic principles. So we have a box here, and the first thing I decide then is, well, what direction do I want the shadow going? And then I decide on the light. So let's say, and obviously the shadow's going to go in kind of the opposite direction the light is. So if the light is over here somewhere, the shadow is going to go in that opposite direction. If the light's behind the object, the shadow's going to come in front of us. So let's say I have the light over here somewhere, the typical studio lighting I set up. So I know I'm going to have my lines kind of going in this direction somewhere like this. Once I have my lines, then I'm going to make a new layer. I know the direction they want to go in. I want to create a straight line like this. To do that, I just simply take my paintbrush tool. I click where I want the line to be. Then I click again somewhere else. So I'm holding down the Alt key, I believe it is. And then I select somewhere else and I click left click on the mouse again, and you get a straight line with the brush tool. I'm going to grab this and make copies of that layer, connect it to each of the bottom edges that are going to be affected by the light. So it's going to be those three back, and even that back edge is important too, just in case. The next thing is how high above the object my light is. So let's say I have, might as well go ahead and copy those layers together. Let's say I have the top of the box here. Is the light directly above the object? If it's directly above the object, I'm only going to see a very slight shadow around the object, if any at all. Is the light over behind the object or on this side of the object? In this case, it's on this side of the object, and how far away is it from the object? Let's say it's kind of far away to add a longer shadow. So then, so that is how above the object is it? Is it over here, over here? Let's say it's way over there somewhere. So the line is something like this, right? Let's go ahead and create that line then. Same I did before. Now, an important, I need to make a new layer for that actually. An important principle with this line is, let's say you have this line come off here. It connects to this edge. Follow that same edge up to the top, and that's where this line is going to connect to that line. So I know that this edge, when I'm running this line, the light line, across that edge, it's going to connect to the same line that's on this line here. So it's this line here is the intersect of this line here because they're on the same parallel line. All right. Continuing doing that same principle for each one of these corners, this is down here, so this is going to connect with that line. Now we'll just see part of it like that. And then finally, this edge here will follow this line, so it's connect to that line, like so. Then I just simply take another color, let's say like this pink color, make a new layer, and I follow the path that, oops, I'm going to zoom in a bit. I just follow these paths here. I'm going to make a bigger brush too. Holding down that Alt key again, connecting those dots, and then finally following the lines back. And I get the shape of my shadow. And I have an action that's called fill that I make, and voila. So I can then delete the lines, and you can see I have my cool shadow. Then I can light the box according to that shadow. Now let's say I wanted the shadow to be even further away. That is, the light is further away from the object over here more, so it's going to cause a greater angle. That is, the light is hitting the object at more of a side angle than from the top. That means the shadow gets longer and more distorted. Oops, I don't need that layer, or that layer, or that layer, and that layer. Okay, make a new layer here. Then what I would do is I would simply make, oops, go back to single. I'd make a much more of a angled line, and so now it's going to come out like that. So now notice the shadow's going to be way out there. It's going to be a lot more further and distorted than it was before. And here, and then finally that outer line over there. So now it's like that. Notice the top gets shorter, the bottom gets longer. Same thing happens with the human body. All right, now I'm going to show you a quick trick. Before we get into, well, how would you apply this principle to the human body? Let me show you a quick trick you can do in Photoshop or any other program that allows you to have a distort. So the first thing that I decide is, okay, the parallel lines going out for the direction of the shadow. So I know the light is over here somewhere. That is, if we view her from above, let's say we're viewing her from above, this is her head, then we know that the light source is coming from over here somewhere, because that's making the, that's the direction, well, the light source going over here, and this is the direction of the shadow. Next, though, is how high above her. So now we go from a side view, which we have here, and so how high above is the light? Is it directly above her here? Is over here? Is over here? Is over here? In other words, what angle is are these lines that coming? Are they coming down here, from here, this angle, this angle, this angle? What angle is it going to be at? So how far away is the light from above her? And that's something you have to decide when you do it. So I decided to make a light up here, right about there, and so they come down at this angle here. I like having a line from her head, the top of her head. That's how high. That's how I know that's the highest part of the shadow was gonna be there. And then of course I have a few more, like on her hip, her crotch, and under her knee. Now if I were to draw this by hand on paper, I would have to actually go through and go, okay, so from here to here covers all this information here. And so it's all really distorted, and it's just going to kind of be like that. That's all over foot and knee area. I know from here to here, I'm going to have all this thigh and kneecap. So I know the kneecap connects right here, and then all the thigh connects in here. It's very distorted because it's all being shorter. The more the light comes at a straight angle, the more it's distorted. The further away it goes, then you have longer legs, but still distorted upper torso. But at least you can see the legs better. But here everything kind of gets squished up, and this is an easy way to tell how it gets squished up. From here I know I have her hips, so I have her hip all right in here. So that whole part of the leg there. Now I know this leg here is going to come at an angle like this to the shadow, and I know it's only going to be that whole bottom part of her foot there. Because the light is hitting at that angle, I know that I'm not going to see something like I would if I were to view the light from this angle here. I would see that open area, but the light isn't coming from that. It's coming like this, so I don't get to see any of the in between the the pillars there, the foot, the heel, and the toe. I could have a few more parallel lines coming down if I wanted to, connecting, just for I have an idea of what goes where, so I know that that whole part of the foot goes there. I know from here to here you have the kneecap and the calf, and then from there to there you have that all the information, the like so, thigh, and then from there to there I have all this other part of the leg, the rest of the calf here like that. I know I'm going to have the part that comes over like this with the leg, and then all of her hips will fit in this area, and then she's going to have her torso comes out like this and bends up. It's all going to be distorted. Actually, I know her head actually should be right in this area, and so because of that I know all of this should be a lot shorter and more distorted, so I need to bring this all down more. And then her arm coming like this and like this. So that's a general idea how you do it by hand, right? But with Photoshop, there's a really easy trick you can do, and even if you still want to draw by hand, you can scan your object into Photoshop. Notice I have a solid outline around here, so when I hit Control, I hold down the Control and my left mouse click on that layer, this layer here. Actually, let me go and delete the layer underneath it, or get rid of it, make it invisible. It goes around that entire object. So now I can go ahead and make a new layer, fill it in with black, for example, and I have the shadow. Okay. So the quick trick then, you set up the guidelines, how you roughly where you want the light, so you kind of know where you want the object to be hidden, or to be how you want it to be distorted. You grab that under object. This is the shadow object now. Edit. So that was I went ahead, filled in that layer, or grabbed that layer. Control, left mouse click on the layer with the drawing, which is just her body like that, and that's what you want to scan into Photoshop or draw in Photoshop, however you want to do it. And then you would make a new layer and fill it in with black. So grab your paint bucket, boom, fill it in with black. Now you have that layer. Okay. Once you have your shadow layer, go to Edit, Transform, and Distort. Grab this top middle square and pull it down to where you're going to have her this same line is going to be going through the shadow's head at the same area, which is right around there. I'm going to make it parallel with this line here. Notice how that leg comes over here. However, if I wanted it parallel with this line over here, then I have to still make sure that line comes through, pull it up, make sure that line comes through the same part of her head and hand here and arm, like so. Like that. Also, if you wanted to, you can pull one of these and you can, give it a more of a distorted look. You can come way down, make it look like, wow, it's going from way far away. But you don't want it to get too much, but you could pull this in just a little bit and then rearrange that. And it just adds a slightly different effect to the shadow. And bam, you have your shadow. Then you go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you can just kind of blur it a little bit so it's not so sharp. This part here, the foot, this is the only thing that this doesn't take care of well. And so just keep in mind you're going to have to just slightly change the shape like that so that matches. And take that black color. I'm going to kind of show that heel like that. Okay. So you get the idea. And then of course you can take your eraser, make it a big soft brush, and just kind of erase as it gets further away. And you can also even blur it as it gets further away, make that strength 100%, and really blur it out there so it's blurry further away. That same principle, then you can take it and just redraw these lines up here. So you have these same parallel lines, but now I'm going to change the angle of these lines here. So these same parallel lines are going to be there. These aren't going to change. That is, I'm not going to change the direction of the shadow right now. What I am going to change though is the angle of the light. So now the light is a lot further away on top of her head over here. So it's now we can, with this bottom plane and this top plane, you kind of get an idea where the light is, and you would know how to shadow her accordingly. Right, so I'm going to meet this line to that outer line over there, so I know how tall the shadow is. I'm going to have a few little lines. Let's say, I know I definitely want her hip, and let's say her crotch, and then finally her kneecap, like so. And then I would also, yeah, that's good enough, I guess. That gives me enough reference points. Go ahead and merge all those together. Oops. Merge layers. I think it's Shift key that, let me make sure this is right. When I do these straight lines, yeah, it's Shift key, sorry, not Alt. I know before I said Alt, but it's Shift key to make those straight lines. So you left mouse click, hold down Shift key, left mouse click somewhere else, and it makes a straight line between those 2 points. I'm going to take my shadow layer here, make a copy of it. Go to Edit, Transform, and Distort. Pull the head to the top line over here. I can either follow this line or this line. Depends on the angle of the light. But what's important, I'm going to make sure at the top of her head like that. And if I wanted to, I could even pull this and make it a little bit thinner, which is going to slightly distort, makes it go further away, which is fine. I can just make it further away. It's up to you. I can also pull this back so that it matches here, but now notice it's not correct. I'm purposely distorting it like that, just to make it further away, and I think it looks cooler like that, but you don't have to do that. So I could actually pull that line back to where it was before, to where everything matches again, like so. What's important though when you're drawing shadows, this is a quick trick you could do like in a program that allows us to store it, and then you can look at this information and draw that on paper. But what you don't want to do, and you want to remember, when you draw those straight lines out and you want to draw your shadow by hand, let's say without any references at all, as you're drawing the basic mannequin here to these distorted shapes here for this leg here, and then you have the hip coming up here somewhere. What's important is that you don't try to draw the other leg parallel with that other line. Otherwise it's not going to look right, because that's not how it's going to be. It's actually going to come at this angle here, like so. So just make sure you do that, and that way the crotch matches right. Just remember the crotch is never going to stretch all weird like. The crotch is always going to appear like it does here with the shadow. And then you can take that same distortion of the shadow and you can pretty much put it in any angle you want. and get all different kinds of shadows that you want from it. You can get a side view shadow, shadow from here, shadow in the front. So just keep that in mind. Thank you for watching.